Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Chicago. John Anthony in for Dan Proft. Dan Proft is off today. Thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with my buddies, Justin and Quinn. We've had good conversations in between the breaks. Really appreciate it. I really, really, really do. I always love filling in the morning. I haven't filled in for Sean in quite some time. Sean, I know you're listening. We got to make that happen. So I fill in for you for the Sean Thompson Show. I really, really do love coming in. And I do miss my morning show in Detroit, where it was a 2-hour show. And, man, we were rolling. We were kicking butt up in Detroit. And I was talking about it in the first hour, I believe it was. And the Speaker of the House is a Republican up there, Matt Hall, right? And he was able to lower the budget number. And they have the House. I mean, they have the Senate and the governor's mansion. And yet they reduced their budget, all because they had a backstop in the House up there in Michigan. I mean, that just means the world to me. But, you know, our next guest, I wanted to have him on. Because I tried to get him on Black and White Radio this past week because he's been just in the thick of it. He's Dustin Grage. He's a columnist at Townhall, and I'm telling you, he is one of the most aggressive, detail-driven reporters covering the federal immigration surge in Minnesota. He's a columnist at Townhall, as I said, and he has been. If you've not following him on X, you have to follow him. He's at Grage Dustin, I believe it is. You got to go follow him. Dustin, welcome to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft.
Thanks for having me, John. Always love being on.
Now, Dustin, you've been on the ground in Minnesota, and you've covered Operation Metro Surge from day one. For people outside the Midwest and people here in Chicago who don't really know what's going on and only seeing the headlines, what's the real story of what has been happening between ICE and Minnesota?
No, and I love that you asked that question, John, because frankly, it started far before Operation Metro Surge. So everyone's familiar with kind of this December to current day last week, I guess, is when it officially ended. But if you go actually back to June of last year, you actually will run into a case where HSI, DHS, and the FBI end up going to a Mexican restaurant in Minneapolis as a part of an investigation for human and drug trafficking crimes. Anyways, they go to here, and they end up obtaining evidence that led to a storage locker just south of Minneapolis, and it ended up bringing 900 pounds of crystal meth off the street.
No way.
Now, the key part here, though, John, is that Omar Fateh, Democrats, the city council, all these other activists, they were pushing back against ICE back then, far before Operation Metro Surge. And this was actually a week before the riots in California and Los Angeles took off.
Yeah.
We can actually trace back these people, these activists, Antifa, DSA, whatever you want to call them. They're all kind of under the same umbrella. These people started in Minneapolis way back then, and it has resulted now to this day. So this is actually very new. It's been about a year-long process that's built up, and really you go back to the George Floyd fight. You really want to go back that far. But, there's nothing new about this, and, Minneapolis, once again, ground zero for the new thing to riot about, no doubt about it.
They're always finding things up there. I mean, look at the governors you guys have had. I mean, it speaks volumes to some of the governors you guys have had. But, you know, there was a Tom Homan gave a press conference, and when I heard this staggering number of the amount of kids found, and I'm looking at all of these people who are coming out against ICE, Dustin, listen to the sheer number of kids that were found, unaccompanied minors that were found doing a lot of these operations. And if they weren't there, they would not have been found.
In addition to taking public safety threats off the street, ICE here in this state have located 3,364 missing unaccompanied alien children. Children that the last administration lost and weren't even looking for. That's because of the leadership of President Trump, these children were located.
Now, Dustin, when you're on the ground, are you explaining this to the so-called protesters?
It's incredible, John. And frankly, Republicans, honestly, need to learn more about this because right now I'm seeing a lot of these Republicans in committee this week because we just kicked off our legislative session on Tuesday. They're just sitting back and not even pushing back in many cases. Now, that's not the case for all of them. There are some really solid conservatives that are pushing back and going, hey, we found 3,300 kids. These are populations of small towns in the state of Minnesota, children being found in these investigations. And they should be pushing back with this. But frankly, honestly, Republicans might be the problem in many cases here because, I mean, Democrats, they never cared. I mean, when Laken Riley was murdered, when America Thayer, an individual who was beheaded by a violent criminal illegal alien in Shakopee, Minnesota, several years ago, Democrats didn't care then. Even the Democrat representative for that town voted against the policies that would have deported that individual before that individual was murdered and beheaded. So Democrats have never cared, but honestly, Republicans need to go on offense here. They need to realize that, hey, Democrats aren't going to change this. You have to take control of the narrative here a little bit. And quite frankly, a lot of them have been afraid to actually push back. But I do hope that they use examples like these, the 3,300 children being found. I mean, again, populations of small towns in their district.
Yes.
They need to push back and use this messaging.
Now, was it Minnesota where was he running for governor that he bowed out because of what's happening in Minnesota? Was that Minnesota where the guy who was running for governor, or was that another state?
That is Tampon Tim. That is correct.
I knew. I'm just joking with you.
we cyberbullied the guy so bad that he ended up dropping out of the race.
Yeah.
But even still, in person too, we ended up protesting outside of his house. Me and a good friend that many of the program might know, known as Nick Sorter.
Yeah.
Nick Sorter actually went outside the governor's residence and ended up protesting. The governor called the cops on him, actually.
Wow.
Several times throughout the day, cops came and approached him. Apparently, at the time, in the governor's mansion, Tim Walz was meeting with Amy Klobuchar in that moment and telling her how he was going to drop out the next day and how she should take his place. And they could switch places eventually if she were to win the governorship. So it just tells you how close some of this stuff is in many cases. But, yeah, the fraud ended up pushing this guy out of the race completely. Now Amy Klobuchar is very vulnerable herself, in my opinion. But we need to bring this back to fraud, but also at the same time push back against this anti-ICE nonsense.
It's funny.
Talking points that make
It's funny because one of your tweets that you did on the 17th, it's been nearly 2 months and not a single Somali daycare has sued Nick Shirley. It's almost as if they were in fact fraudulent. Now it's been reported that some of these organizations were under investigation, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there was more of a kind of a rumor at that point, but we actually confirmed as of yesterday in committee for the Family and Children Committee. I forget the exact name. But an inspector general of that committee actually ended up coming out and said, we can confirm that multiple daycare centers in the Nick Shirley video were already under investigation. And get this, John, they actually went further, and they had to go through the top 100 payout list of daycare centers. And because of Nick Shirley doing that, it forced them to go down the list further, and that inspector general, although he wouldn't give details on how many, but he has said that they have done stop payments on several organizations on that list because of the result of Nick Shirley bringing this up. And I have to believe that Tim Walz knew that there's more fraud to be uncovered, and because of Nick Shirley going viral and bringing attention to this, he knew he was cooked, and that's why he dropped out. Now, if he had waited a couple more days for Metro Surge, he might still be in the race. We never know because they view this as their wedge issue to be able to push back and hold off for a Democrat majority. I don't think they're going to pull it off. I think we are going to win back, whether it's a legislative body, the governorship, or the attorney general. We're going to make ground this election. The question is how much ground we will make up. And hopefully we can just take it all. But, yeah, the fraud has to come back to the front of the issue. I've actually texted Nick. He's probably coming back to Minnesota at some point. We were talking specifically about that tweet, and I quote, "This one banged." But it's true because these daycare centers are fraudulent. They were fraudulent. even if just one of 10 of those were legitimate and like it's just a mistake based on the time day you came, we can confirm in this committee, the Inspector General said multiple of those daycare centers were already under investigation, and multiple more had stop payments put on them because fraud was looked at, and that there is probable fraud, and they had to stop paying the organization. So it's not a right-wing conspiracy. It's not a right-wing conspiracy.
Dustin, where has the Attorney General been? Where is Keith Ellison? Is he a part of this? Allegedly, I know there's been some rumors about that spread all over social media.
He did collect donations from the fraudsters of Feeding Our Future. He is personal friends with them. He's taken pictures with them in many cases. And yeah, is it a lock steal that guy's going to prison? No, I don't think so, because he can definitely write that off as I was just listening to my constituents.
That's true.
At the end of the day, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
And if people keep digging, I'm sure they are going to come to a source and realize that why are all of these crimes and this fraud, why is it all connected exclusively to the Democrat Party in Minnesota? Whether it's the moderate wing or the DSA wing, they're all connected somehow. And that's why they had to bring in Amy Klobuchar, because she's off in D.C. So she's kind of a little bit disconnected from it. Yeah. Clean sweep.
Well,
we could probably dig into that.
well, let's talk about because you helped surface the video. Let's talk about the Renee Good shooting, because a lot of people made that out to be something that it wasn't, and you helped surface the video of Renee Good before the shooting, where her SUV was blocking ICE vehicles, and she's seen dancing in the street and horn blowing. How did that footage change the narrative that she was just simply an innocent bystander?
Well, and it just goes to show also, because I got to make this point, because I want Republicans to get it. Law enforcement typically are the good guys, and they don't lie for any particular reason. They are upholding the law, and they're the good guys. And sure enough, as DHS put out their statements saying how this individual knew she was there, or she was doing something for a specific reason. Then this video came out, I think maybe a week and a half later, I think I put it out. But yeah, she's honking to the tune of her own, dancing and honking to the tune of her own horn. She's blocking the road for 3+ minutes before ICE officers even approach her. She's clearly impeding on federal law enforcement in this process. But yeah, it just goes to show, because the original narrative was, this was just a mom making a 3-point turn down a one-way road, which, good luck with that. That's not how that works. She's just dropping off her kid. It was a scared mom. It just completely derailed these narratives that were made up by Democrats. And, Republicans, whenever situations like this occur, just give it 24, 48 hours before you make a comment. Going against federal law enforcement, because, they tend to be on the right side of history, and maybe it's these soccer moms who are in signal chats trying to impede on law enforcement might actually be the bad actors here.
And Dustin, what about the Preddy shooting? Now, I know there was also a video that surfaced of him interacting with ICE, kicking and breaking. Was that real video? Was that AI?
No, that was completely real. That was, I believe, about 2 weeks earlier, which, again, the other narrative, and, whether the actual shooting is justified or whatnot, completely separate issue. Why were these people in the places they were at the certain times that they were? Why were they in those situations in the first place? Because governors like Tim Walz were calling these people Gestapo, because Peggy Flanagan, our lieutenant governor, was telling activists to put their bodies on the line, to go into these signal chats, to get trained to be legal observers. But I don't know if legal observers are trained to kick out taillights and spit on law enforcement, because that's what Alex Prey did 2 weeks before his shooting that ultimately took his life.
Did they know him? Did they know who it was? Did they know him when they engaged with him?
I don't think anyone can really comment on if they knew who he was. I mean, he was wearing the same exact outfit. He was holstering the same exact firearm. I mean, it was almost as if it was shot that same day. But they were different times. There's 3,000 agents. Who's to say one of the agents was the same agent? I would be hard pressed to believe that happened. Just probability standards.
Yeah.
But even still. Past crimes don't, necessarily engage into possibly the end of your own life, whether it's a good shooter or not.
And Dustin, and one of the things that listen, I know a lot of Republicans got saying he shouldn't have showed up with a gun. Yes, he should have. As long as he should be able to carry that gun anywhere he want. The moment he engaged, that's when he was at fault.
And resisted arrest.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah. You know, any lawful gun owner will tell you that yes, resisting the police is usually going to end up in a bad result.
Yeah.
Every single time. You know, just be a law-abiding citizen, and when law enforcement tells you to, you know, surrender yourself, get on your knees and get handcuffed, you know, you do that.
Right.
Like, you listen to law enforcement. They are the authority there. And, yeah, it could have saved his life if he simply cooperated.
Dustin, we got just a little bit more time left. We don't have that much time, I should say. You're a native Minnesotan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall seeing any of this when Barack Obama was president or Joe Biden was president, as far as taking this to the street?
You know, I think it really started around the time of another shooting, and I am just for the life of me spacing out on the name, but before George Floyd. But no, it really didn't. It was never really like this. I think it really picked up in 2016 when President Trump became elected.
Yeah.
That's when things started to really start to escalate with Antifa cells, the DSA later coming in and kind of replacing that. But I think it really started around the Trump presidency as simply a way to resist. They paint, granted, they paint everyone as Nazis. They painted Mitt Romney as a Nazi at one point, which is just so laughable.
George Bush.
To this day. But yeah, you know, this is just a pushback against, you know, based on who's in power at the time. And while Trump's policies were doing very, very well, I mean, that guy was walking to an easy reelection up until, well, we're just going to throw out COVID and then we're going to throw in some riots in there. And then everything changed. The guy was a runaway victory because the policies were winning. So the Democrats had to come in and ultimately create chaos to distract and ultimately to probably destroy the economy. I mean, at the end of the day, look at the bad actors involved with this job. Yeah. It's Antifa, it's the DSA, it's these radical leftists who want to see the fall of the Western civilization because they hate capitalism.
Yes.
What's the really great way to kill capitalism? I don't know. Let's look at Metro Surge as the most recent option. These people out there, they collectively got all the unions together to strike from making any purchases and participating in capitalism in any way. And now the mayor of Minneapolis, Mayor Fry, is begging the federal government for reparations of $500 million to pay for them after they caused a mess, after they refused to comply with federal law enforcement, after they chose to do strikes to not participate in their local economy. Now they're blaming the federal government for that.
Of course.
But, yeah, at the heart of it are these hard left activists who ultimately want to see the fall of capitalism, which should be the fall of Trump's approval numbers because the economy is not doing as well in their lives. And it engages their voters to actually show up to vote because they're like, oh, look, everything's going poorly. Well, they're going poorly because of your actions, but, you know, not the president, so your guys can get out to vote. That's what it's all about.
Dustin, we got to leave it there. You got to come on my Saturday show, Black and Right. I'd love to have you, brother. Would love to. I would love to, John. He's a columnist at Townhall.com. Dustin Grage. Follow him at Grage Dustin on X. Thanks so much for joining us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Thanks, John.
We'll be right back.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
When someone you love is living with memory loss, finding the right care isn't just important, it's everything. At Terra Vista of Oak Brook Terrace, memory care isn't an add-on, it's all we